Today I'm joined by Dave from Luxury Bazaar. Dave, thanks so much for joining me, where we're going to be discussing my top 5 predictions for Rolex in 2024. So let's get right into it. Dave, thanks so much for joining me. I figured I would like to have you on the panel because we think similarly in terms of, I guess, like our tastes and preferences in watches, but also in terms of the way, I guess, we analyze what brands may do for the following year. All right, so starting first, my prediction is going to be that they're going to discontinue one of the steel GMT Master 2 references. And I've heard rumbling about this probably, for the last 3 years, that they were going to discontinue the Pepsi specifically, right? And that's because they're having issues with that kind of bleed of color with the blue and black, or the blue and red rather, ceramic bezel.
Yeah, correct. I mean, the Pepsi, it really is the most popular out of the bunch, right? And it's the hardest to acquire currently. So I imagine that they've ramped down production to anticipate an eventual discontinuation for 2024, right? You can see it on our end. Even wholesale, the prices are pretty consistent to where they were, about a year ago, and they're a dime a dozen, right? They're pretty hard to find.
Yeah, they're not as easy to find. Actually, I've started to see prices come up on them on a wholesale level. They're getting harder and harder to get. People aren't trading them as much as they used to, and those that have them are kind of keeping it to themselves, kind of thing. Yeah. So that'll be an interesting thing. I mean, listen, I also had the prediction that they wouldn't do the left-handed GMT for long, just because it's such a quirky and out-of-the-box, really unexpected model from Rolex. I thought they would do like maybe something like the OPs, right? Like the yellow, the turquoise, and the red OP, where they make it 2 years, likewise with the left-handed GMT, and then they just discontinue it out of left field, right?
I mean, the lefty, the Sprite, you don't really see too many. You see them trading at a significant premium, but you don't really see too many in the flesh, right? I almost never see them out and about. I feel like it's something more of an asset that trades hands.
You know what?
And maintains value.
Right. I have yet to see anybody actually in the wild wearing that watch. I don't think I've ever seen anybody, which is pretty crazy, right? Because it's a serially produced Rolex, and they're out there to be had.
I mean, at a point we had 4 of them, right? So it's definitely a quirky watch. Me being a lefty, I mean, I really I congratulate Rolex for being inclusive, but I still wear my watch on the left, so maybe that's a reason why we don't see that many.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do discontinue the Pepsi. I think it'll be kind of a little strange because they've always pretty much, the first GMT Master 2 was a Pepsi, all the way to today is still a Pepsi, right? So them not making a Pepsi bezel GMT will be a little bit strange, but I don't know. I think it would be interesting. It would be nice to kind of freshen up the GMT line.
I think so too, and also it'd be really interesting to see where the pricing on the GMTs go. If it gets discontinued, then I think
it's probably going to hit 30.
Yeah, 30,000. Yeah, so buy your Pepsis now while you can, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Get them cold. Get them while they're cold, huh?
All right. All right. So moving on to my second prediction, and that is that we're going to see a new version of the Seadweller, specifically the reference 126600. So they made this in 2017 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Seadweller. I was all for it because I love red text on Rolex. I think aesthetically it just looks phenomenal, right?
It really does, yeah.
And they've been making this now, obviously commemorating the anniversary for some time, right? They do this, like there was the Kermit, for example, they made for almost a decade, or I think even potentially more than a decade, right? So I could see them discontinuing this and doing something a little different. The reason being is that if you look back to the previous reference, the 116600, even the 16600, those were both 40 millimeter cases. Actually, the Seadweller in 43 millimeters, the largest Seadweller they ever made. And it's kind of a little bit strange in that I would say it almost cannibalizes the Deep Sea, right? Because the Deep Sea is 44 millimeters. It's a touch bigger. Whereas this kind of is in that no man's land where it's not big, but it's not small kind of thing. So I could see them going down like the Yacht Master 42, right?
Correct, yeah.
In 42 millimeters.
What I would love to see, right, is, if you look at the Deep Sea Challenge, right, their use of titanium, that kind of being a proof of concept, right, and then expanding it to the greater collection with the new titanium Yacht Master, why not incorporate that into more of their sporting models, right? So I think it would be really interesting to see a Seadweller in full titanium, right? Just because maybe they keep the 43 millimeters and they do a titanium, or they kind of piggyback back over the Yacht Master and kind of tweak that case to make it 42. So yeah, hoping that it comes out in titanium because I'm a sucker for it.
I like that. I actually didn't consider them coming out in titanium, but it would make sense, right? It's one of the few, I guess, non-gold Rolex models. Obviously, they have the two-tone Seadweller, so I would actually like to see them maybe potentially experiment with materials. I like that. What about the red text? Would you keep the red text?
I love the red text. Yeah, red text is great. It's just so eye-catching, and especially with that dial being kind of a more muted, kind of matte, it really just pop out. Yeah, so
I agree.
I think of that watch.
It's a nice point of distinction from the Submariner line, right? So it doesn't make it so like kind of similar. Well,
also we have, you know, gentlemen who are bigger, right? So there is a place for these bigger watches, right? I had a client who came in, hulk of a man, right? And he was wearing, you know, a red liner, and it worked perfectly for him. Yeah. So you know, I feel like there is a place, a time and a place for these bigger models.
Fair enough. Moving on to my third prediction, I want to see a complete revamp and overhaul of the Rolex 1908 line, right? This was released last year as kind of the new Cellini, if you will, right? Something a little bit more bold and daring, I guess, in the dress watch range, but I think this just fails to meet the mark. It's a bit too plain, it's very austere, it's just not Rolex, you know what I mean? And if they really want to take over the dress watch market, this was a rumor that I'd heard that they really want to do this and be competitive in the dress watch market. This just, I mean, it just isn't it, right? So I'd love to see something.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like one of Paul's doings, right, where he takes the logo and puts it on something else. It really doesn't fit in their current lineup. Yeah. It's kind of awkward. I mean, okay, if you were to remove the Rolex branding, right, maybe slap a JLC on it, it could go, right? I could go for it, right?
It would make a little bit more sense.
A bit more sense, right? But you know, with all of the pedigree behind, you know, the crown, you'd expect something a bit more
daring, bold.
Yeah, daring,
right?
bold, exactly. So this seems very, very safe, right? And I mean, I've seen there's a guy I follow, Framestar. He wears this, and he actually makes it look good. So maybe if we were to have, you know, more variants with just a little bit more going on, maybe a sector dial, something cool happening, right?
Yeah. Even like they did the Cellini moon phase, right? I thought that was really interesting with the pointer date, the moon phase obviously being in meteorite. I thought that was, and even the dial, I think the sub dial, was it in lapis? It might have been in lapis.
Yeah, it was.
If I'm not mistaken, right? So it was a little bit more interesting. I think it had a lot more appeal to something like this, which is literally just an Explorer dial dress watch.
Correct. Right? Yeah. I mean, this is really the first release of this range. So think about the with, like, for example, the Code 1159. That first release was a total flop, and now, you know, they're really kind of getting into the meat and potatoes and releasing some really nice pieces, right? The Star Wheel. I mean, amazing releases now. So hopefully they'll take that in that direction, and they'll add a few more complications.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I like it. I guess it's a start, right? It's not a good one, but it's somewhere. So moving on to my fourth prediction, I want to see a new lineup in 40 millimeters of a re-release, I guess, because they did this in the past, of more stone dials. Now, last year we saw Rolex release a number of stone dials in 36 millimeters, namely the green aventurine, the turquoise, even they did the orange carnelian. These were really, really good looking ladies pieces. Even I think they could lend themselves to be unisex for the right person.
Yeah,
right?
LeBron James, he wears the turquoise.
I think it's a really nice look, but I'd love to see them kind of return it in 40, or at least reintroduce it in 40 millimeters, maybe with something like, you know, like the lapis, like they used to do sodalite, rubellite, the bloodstone or jasper dials.
Yeah, I do think this is an opportunity them to take a bit more risk, to play a little bit more with colors, and generally speaking, you know, these more ostentatious pieces, they do really well on the secondary, right?
Yeah.
And limited releases, and I do think the 40 is just such a more contemporary size, right? Versus the 36, it's you know, like
fits better, feels better, looks better.
It's undoubtedly
it's just modern.
Yeah, it's undoubtedly modern, right? Yeah. So I think that would be a great alternative, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to see the lapis lazuli. it's my favorite stone.
It's it's such a beautiful dial. I would love to see them reimagine it. Even, let's say a rose gold like bloodstone dial, I think would be awesome, right? Yellow gold lapis, I think, is a wonderful combination. We saw the white gold sodalite, white gold rubellite. Those are just phenomenal dials. They add that little touch, and I think it would reinvigorate the Day-Date line, which I think has suffered of late, just because it's a lot of the same. You know what I mean? We've seen it. It's been done before. There's nothing new here.
Yeah, fluted bezel on platinum. And that was their big release.
There's not much you can reinvent with the Day-Date model. So reimagining old classics, I would love to see.
They did do those puzzle pieces. So maybe another novelty for the Day-Date line that incorporates kind of that quirkiness, because that's a real departure for them with the puzzle piece, right? I remember when it came out, people were saying, "Wow, that's so political, so brave," because they thought that it was kind of touching on the symbol of autism, right? But apparently there's no connection at all. It's just
really?
Yeah. Apparently there's no connection. Yeah.
So I had heard it was made for kind of autism awareness, and obviously Rolex being part of the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, it's a charitable trust, right? That they were donating. I guess the sales towards autism, or is that not the case?
Honestly, I've heard that it was, and then after I heard that there was no relation, I was reading in the. Okay. I mean, it's Rolex.
Who knows?
It's Rolex, right?
They're so secretive, right?
It might as well be the CIA of watches, right?
Yeah, that's true. We'll never find out. Right. Well, let's go to my last prediction, and that is something that they're going to do with the Milgauss. I don't know what it will be. I hope that they re-release the original kind of honeycomb dial with a rotating bezel Milgauss. I think that was such a good look for the Milgauss. It'll be a departure away from the kind of GV crystal with the blue, and even that heavy orange with the white dial, even the black dial with that orange lightning bolt hand. I think this is a little bit more, I guess, traditional, classical, but I'm all for it. I think this is a great look.
I love it. I love it with those bulkier lugs that it looks like it's an actual tool, right?
Right.
Rather than the previous ones were a bit
too polished, right? It's not really a tool watch.
It wasn't. Like you wouldn't imagine an engineer at CERN wearing a GV Milgauss, right? Yeah. But something like this, you could see him, wrenching away at the large
using the timing bezel.
Exactly. So this is kind of maybe returning back to its original ethos, right? So that I really like that rendering on the left. Yeah, that's very, very cool.
I think it would be awesome. I think this was actually done by Monochrome Watches a couple of years ago, but yeah, I would love to see this. But a few more picks I'd love to see. Even, for example, a white dial Explorer. I think that would be pretty nice. I don't know about you, if you have anything that you would like to see from Rolex.
I want to see titanium everywhere. That's me. I'm a titanium type of guy. I just think it's such a versatile material. It's the best of everything. It's light. It's durable. I mean, there's
more scratch resistant.
Yeah, more scratch resistant.
Yeah, more corrosion resistant.
Exactly.
It's a I guess superior metal in many ways to steel, right?
Yeah, and it's hypoallergic, right? Something people don't speak about is that even authentic Rolexes, some people can still have allergies to them. I mean, that's and titanium's hypoallergic, so that's, I think, a safe bet, right, for Rolex. Release as much titanium as you want.
I think that's a good pick. Also, what I would love to see, I don't know if you've ever seen renderings of a two-tone Daytona with a ceramic bezel. I called for this last year. I think it would be so good. It would reinvigorate that two-tone Daytona line, because they're really suffering. Nobody really cares for it.
I'm a fan of the 116503. I think it's cool. I like the black.
It's a good-looking watch. It's a really good-looking watch, but they're definitely suffering in the current market. And I think adding a ceramic bezel is that touch of it's just cool. And listen, a gold bezel is not that much gold. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
You're not losing much value in that case. But yeah, those are our predictions for Rolex in 2024. Guys, let us know down in the comments below what you would like to see or what you expect to see from Rolex next year. It's always interesting to hear your feedback. But Dave, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks.
And guys, be sure to let us know down in the comments what videos you'd like to see. And thank you so much for watching.